Hello, and welcome to JavaScript Marathon, a week full of free online courses in some of the leading web development technologies and concepts. My name is Tara Hampton, and I will be your host. Today's trainer is Star Richardson, here to teach us about GraphQL DataLoaders. Welcome, Star.
Hello, thank you.
If you have any questions after today, feel free to follow Star on Twitter at Allison Star. That's ALICENSTAR. A special thanks to this week's sponsor, This Labs, offering personalized training opportunities to suit your organizational needs, ensuring you and your company stay on the leading edge. If you find keeping up with constantly evolving technologies a struggle and want to bring your team up to speed on one of the latest technologies, contact us today at hi@thisdot.co to set up your complimentary needs assessment. And This Labs is hiring. If you're an engineering manager or a senior software engineer, send us your resume and information at jobs@thisdot.co. And as you can see, we have a lot of events to wrap up 2021 next month. I mean, Star, can you believe it? It's already December nearly, and I feel like it was just September, like, what, last week?
Yeah, this year has just flown by.
Yeah, it's a little crazy. I feel like the older I get, the faster time goes, and I'm not sure I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
For details and registration links, go to this.media.com or follow us on Twitter at this.media. And on that note, I pass the mic over to you, Star.
Awesome, thank you. So for anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Star. I am a self-taught software engineer. I started learning to code back in June of 2020. And I currently work at This as a software engineer. Been loving it. It's a great team. So, we're hiring, like she said. A little bit about my background. Since I've started working at This I have learned, I feel like, a lot about GraphQL, and DataLoaders are one of those things that I've learned this year that I thought was super cool. So I'm excited to teach you guys some things about it. Please feel free to ask questions at any time. This talk does assume some basic GraphQL knowledge, but if you have any GraphQL questions as well, I will answer those as best I can. But I'll be walking through DataLoaders, what they are, how to use them, implement them, and I have an example repository to kind of show you guys as well. All right, so what are DataLoaders? Directly from the DataLoader docs, DataLoader is a generic utility to be used as part of your application's data fetching layer to provide a simplified and consistent API over various remote data sources such as databases or web services via batching and caching. It's kind of a mouthful, but basically all you need to know is that it is a very, very, very small library that provides batching and caching around your APIs. And DataLoaders can actually be used on any JavaScript project. The actual entire DataLoader project is made up of only a few hundred lines of code. Now, there's more files like tests and things, and there's a lot of descriptive comments in that project, but overall, the actual meat of DataLoaders is just a few hundred lines of code. All right, why use DataLoaders? Like I said, DataLoaders can be used on any JavaScript project, but they work especially well with GraphQL because GraphQL has a famous N+1 problem. Basically, let me see, I can link an article that I read. Let's see, Tara, I don't know if you can post this, and I will link it as well at the end. But you can read more about this N+1 problem, but in short, it is basically that for every one database queries that you make with GraphQL that return n results, you'll need to make an additional n queries. This quickly becomes super inefficient, and by adding DataLoaders, you can turn those n queries into one. So they essentially solve this problem for GraphQL. And here I just have an example to kind of further demonstrate this n+1 problem. So you encounter this problem with any kind of relational data model, basically. So say you make this query. In SQL, this would kind of equal out to selecting all of the characters, and then this current location is a related object. And basically for each character, it's going to then have to also query the location for each character, even if some of the locations are the same and you fetched them before. So say you have 20 characters that you're trying to search for, this equals out to 21 queries already, one to select this, and then one location query per every character. Let's see, sorry, just reading the comments. So as you can see, already just from that one query, up to 21 SQL queries, not very efficient. Also in this same query, we have a search for just a single character. And again, it's going to go through and find the character and then also query its location again, even though in this same query, we just found all the characters. So we really shouldn't have to fetch them again. You would think that GraphQL would be smart enough to know that we already got it, but it's not really how GraphQL works under the hood. GraphQL treats every field as its own function. It resolves each field separately, kind of in its own box. And now to actually kind of show you how we can kind of set this up with some actual code. It really just takes 3 steps. It's very easy to implement DataLoaders in your project. First, you would just install it. I already have it installed. You need to create a DataLoader instance, and you need to create a batching function. And batching functions are made up of 3 main parts that I will go over in just a moment. Let me drag this over here. All right, so here I have an example project that was kindly given to me by one of my coworkers. He created this full stack GraphQL project that is a Rick and Morty API, if you're familiar with the show. So we have our characters, their locations, and some other fields on them as well. But here, all you really need to know on our server folder, we're going to go into our GraphQL folder, and then we're going to check out our character resolver. So here we already have like our model set up for all of these characters, as well as our resolvers, type defs. So you would just need your existing GraphQL project. And here, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and start this up. Run start. Run start, if I can spell. All right, so I'm just going ahead and spinning up this project, the server. And here, I'm going to go ahead and open this up. So here, we're at our API. This project has graphical setup, which if you're not familiar, it's a super useful GraphQL IDE, so you can kind of see your queries. You can also see the documentation for your queries. So you can go to characters and kind of see, so we have some different fields and things. Again, this location field and origin field are kind of our related objects that we're looking at here. So just to demonstrate first, let me actually make these go side by side. Okay, so here in our terminal, we have our project set up to kind of log the actual queries that this is making under the hood using SQLize. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same first characters query that I had shown before. I'm also querying for the origin here. And if I go ahead and run this, as you can see, that just created a ton of queries. This is just from one request. So as you can see, that quickly becomes very redundant. And let me see, can everyone see this all right? I'm not sure if the size is okay. But you can also see a lot of these IDs here are duplicate. So it's querying for the same data over and over and over again. this quickly becomes super inefficient. Let's see. And same for, let's see. Again, if I add these other queries in, they're all essentially querying for the same data. Like this is getting all the current locations for all the characters, getting all the locations, and then just getting information for a single character. But it's going to query all of this separately. Let's see. I'm going to do this just to give us a little break to see this better. Again, tons of queries, not very efficient. So let's go ahead and try to solve this and set up our first data loader. So my coworker that kind of gave me the starter project that he had built, he has this set up very nicely. So we have like our helper functions, resolvers, type defs, and again, they're all, and each of these are just exported from a single index file. I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder for loaders. And in here, I'm going to first create our character loader. .js. All right. We're going to start with importing DataLoader. Let me make this bigger. Alrighty. And I know we're also going to need our character model for this. All right, so first, like I said, DataLoaders, it's really 3 steps. So install DataLoader, I already have it in this project. We're also going to create our batching function. For now, I'm just going to call this get batch characters. And this is going to be an async function. I'm just going to do a blank function right now. And then we also need to create a new DataLoader instance. So I'm going to call this character loader. And you can name this whatever you want. It doesn't need to follow the blank loader format. I just think, it makes the most sense. New data loader, get batch characters. Again, thank you, Copilot. And then we're going to export this. All right, let's see. So there are, like I said, 3 parts to these batch functions. And really, this needs to follow the specific structure in order to work with DataLoader. How it works is DataLoader expects your batch function to accept an array of keys and return a promise that resolves to an array of values or errors. And it's very important that the array or the promise that it resolves to an array that you're returning is the same length and in the same order of the keys that you are receiving. DataLoader will not, it'll error out if it doesn't have all of these individual traits. So I'm going to start with our query. So in your batch function, you need to do whatever either your model.find all, or you can do your data fetching if you're using an external API here at this part. So I'm going to do characters, and we're going to find all of our characters. And we're going to find just the characters that have the keys we're getting. So this function, I should also explain how DataLoader works is it works to batch requests to your API. So say you're getting a ton of requests, or like I showed before, maybe you have a query that's made up of a few smaller queries that are kind of requesting overlapping information. DataLoader is going to batch all of the keys that you're requesting in that request and then pass them to your batch function. And it collects this in one tick of the JavaScript event loop. Let's see. And then it passes them here, and then we'll run your batch function. So that is the first piece. The second piece is then you're going to reduce. Let's see, characters that reduce. And we're creating a new object here with the IDs of the data we're returning as the index and associating it with the data we just queried for. So we're going to get our accumulator and make the index the ID and assign it to the value that we just grabbed from our characters database. And then return that. All right, and again, this is very important that this returns the data or maps it in the same order as the keys that you originally received. That's why I'm doing it this way. It's important so that whenever DataLoader is returning the data that you queried for, it associates it with the correct request in the right order. And then finally, we're just going to map these keys back with our accumulator that we just did. So again, just returning it by the key. And it's a good idea here. You can return null if it's not there, or you can return a new error, no result for this. Because again, even if some of your results error out, your array needs to maintain the same length. Let's see. Jimmy, yes, I can destructure it, but I do need the whole object as well, so I just chose to do it that way. Yeah, and so that's basically it. Again, it's very short. There's not a lot of boilerplate. And now just to hook this up to our resolver, I'm going to do this here and then import it. So we're importing our character loader. Oh, wait, sorry, this is not the right one. And then, yes, down here. And you call this by, this is an asynchronous function as well, if I didn't mention that or if you didn't see. But so we await this character loader.load, and then you can just pass it the ID from this query. And again, so in a single tick of the event loop, it'll batch all those IDs and end up passing this an array of keys, but just pass it your ID, simple. And so I haven't done this for the location yet, but I just want to see how this reduces our queries. Okay. So network error. Oh, whoops. Of course, when live coding, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. All right, give me 1 second. Character loader. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to export this from my index.js file. Okay, so just going to export this. Almost. Marvelous. Okay. Let's try this again. Models. Oh. Oh, sorry. 1 second. Here. Okay. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay. I still have a lot of queries. Actually, let me clear this because I didn't have that before. Let's count these again. Okay, again, just giving us a little break. Okay, so I think this would actually show, so it's still showing a lot of queries because we haven't done our location loader yet. But if I were to query for another character after this, it shouldn't call for that character again. So let's see, we can see we're getting all of our locations. So it's, again, querying for all the locations, but it's not querying for this other character because earlier in this request, it has already fetched it. So let's make this even better and do the locations now. So again, I'm going to make a new file, location loader. And this will essentially be the same. Okay. Instead, we're going to do locations. Get batch locations. Locations. So you really just have to do the same thing. It's very simple. Just double checking. And get batch locations. We're going to call this a location loader, obviously. Just double checking I don't have a character hiding in here. Wonderful. And then, again, we'll just add our location loader. Boom. And so here we can, let's see, let's first implement this on our location resolver, and then we'll add it to our related field in a moment. Well, let's see. Oh, and for this particular project, location queries were used in a few different places. So my coworker kind of broke this out into a location helper function just to make it a little more reusable. So I'm just going to swap these out. So rather than individually querying for each location by ID, again, we're just going to run our loader by importing it and just doing location loader.load. All right, now we should be able to see something interesting happen. Oh, maybe. Let's see, give me one moment. Character loader. Oh, I think I do have to actually put this here. Okay. Boom, there we go. So I did have to put it on the related field, my mistake. But as you can see, that reduced the 20 queries to just 2. So since we already grabbed all of these characters, so it's going to get all the characters, and then here, let me see. It just batches the location so we don't have to keep fetching them over and over again. Oh, wait, OP is not defined. Oh, dear. Freaking typos, man. Oh, sorry guys. I just realized I forgot an import. That would help. Okay. And we're going to add this back to our character loader as well. Okay. Running. All right. OP. Oh, I did the same thing again. Okay. Live coding is hard. Alrighty. For real this time, guys. Thank you. This is my first talk. Okay. So let's just take this out again so we can just analyze the characters individually. And again, let me make sure and yes, these are all set. Okay. Let me clear my console so I can read this better. Okay, so you can see we have our first query where we're selecting all of the characters here, and then also we have a query that's counting characters. Let's see, and then here you can see the IDs it's actually querying for from our location model. It batches them, so it's listing all of the IDs from these characters, and it's removing duplicates. So it just shows each ID singularly and fetches it. So it's a lot more efficient than 21 queries. Instead, it does it batches the IDs for you. Okay. Oh, sorry, give me just a moment. So again, just to recap, all you need to set up data loaders in your project is to add the data loader package and then create your batch function, which is made up of your query here. Again, if you're using an external API, you would query for that data here and query for all of the IDs that you need, the keys here. Next, you would kind of map those to the characters by ID to associate the data that was returned with its ID as a key that's easily indexable. And then you would map that back, and the DataLoader library returns this as a promise that resolves to an array of your values. So pretty easy peasy. Let's see, do we have any questions so far? Yeah. Okay. Alrighty. There's a really cool video, and this is linked to in the DataLoader docs, but I can drop the link as well on YouTube by Lee Byron, the co-creator of GraphQL. We're not actually caching values, we're caching promises. I just thought that was a little interesting insight into the way that data loaders work. Let's see. And I just wanted to talk about some additional benefits and features of the DataLoader library. Like I said, it's very lightweight. It's really only made up of a few hundred lines of code. It has very minimal boilerplate. You really just need to add, again, a few lines of code, like 10, 20 lines for your individual batch functions. And it can be used on any JavaScript project. But again, it's especially helpful with GraphQL since GraphQL currently doesn't have anything really built in. I mean, I guess DataLoaders is built in. It's made to solve the N+1 problem for GraphQL. And DataLoaders also has additional methods. So you saw me use the load function primarily, but there's also load many, DataLoaders is primarily useful when querying for individual objects. When you're querying for many, it's best to use the load many. It's a little odd to use with REST APIs just because with REST APIs, if you're querying for lots of data, it returns a very specific response with just that data. So you'd be caching just that specific response, if that makes sense. DataLoaders also has a clear and a clear all method. So if you ever need to manually clear the cache, with the clear method, you can pass in an ID. Say you're doing a mutation, you could clear it and then reload that ID and data into your cache. There's also prime if you would like to prime your cache for a request. One thing I haven't mentioned so far is that DataLoaders is just a per request cache. So through a whole request, it'll cache that data. So like I said, I had one query made up of kind of some subqueries, and so it'll kind of cache data between those. But as soon as that's over, that cache is deleted, thrown away, garbage collected. So it's really helpful in reducing, like turning requests that might kind of end up making several API calls into one. If you need something like a more persistent cache, that would be a job for something like Redis or Memcache. But DataLoaders is still very useful just for reducing calls to your API where in the instance of where something isn't cached, like in a persistent memory. Let's see. Yes, this does work for API requests as well. So like I said, if, let me open this up. So in here, instead of querying your database, you could, await fetch and fetch some data from an external API as well. There's also some additional options you can pass in to kind of customize your data loader. So you can change the scheduling function. So like I said, by default, it collects all requests in a single tick of the event loop. But if for some reason you have something running longer, or you want to extend that batch time, you can actually pass in your own custom schedule function. You can also limit the batch size and disable batching and caching altogether if you have some specific use case for that. And kind of talking again briefly about DataLoaders versus Redis, because I feel like this is something that comes up a lot. DataLoaders are a per request cache, like I said. So once that single request is completed, the cache is garbage collected. It's done. It's gone. There's no way to access it again. It creates a new request a new cache every single request. It also has the primary purpose of batching. So DataLoaders is actually primarily a batching library, and caching is kind of like a secondary thing that it does. But again, the batching will help if you're querying for lots of data in a single request, kind of help reduce requests for data that you've already gotten before. And then, sorry, I'm reading the comments. I'm getting distracted. Okay. And then Redis is something like Redis or Memcache is more persistent and long-term. So again, you kind of have this, and it's application-wide. So if you need to access something between requests, then, obviously that would be a bit more of a powerful option. You can actually use them together. And like I said, it's very useful. So, say you have Redis set up in your project, but maybe it just has some things cached and not everything. Those items that you don't have cached, if they're requesting lots of data that has a lot of duplicate information in it, DataLoaders will still help reduce hits to your API. All right. If anyone has any other questions, now would be a great time. You can also always hit me up on Twitter if you think of questions later. Again, I have my Twitter handle in the bottom right. I am Allison Starr. Yeah, and thank you guys so much for coming to my first talk. Sorry if I was awkward, but I hope you guys learned something cool. Jimmy, what do you recommend as strategy to clear cache for DataLoaders? So Again, clearing cache, you would really only need to do this if you're doing a mutation. So let me kind of pull up my example again. So let's see. So we don't have any mutations in this project, but say we wanted to make a mutation where you're adding a friend to a character or a relation or something. During that add, you would do something like, let me see where I have my loader. I'm just going to kind of pseudocode this. This won't be entirely accurate, but say we're like add friend or something. You would kind of do something like await, like do your logic to add your friend here, and then you would await, I believe it's character loader dot clear, and then something. Oh, it would help if I make this async. And then you would do something, again, just like a character loader dot load. Let me see. And I'm just kind of double checking that right now. I'm just double checking my logic. Let's see. So again, this is kind of pseudocode, but you would clear and then you would load just to kind of refresh that cache per request. But again, you really should only use that for a mutation. And like I said, it'll clear your cache after each request automatically. Let's see. And I even are there ways to do this as config instead of as code? Not as well. Actually, I have seen. Let me see if we have it here. Let's see. So I believe this project isn't using Apollo Server, but if you were using something like Apollo Server, I have seen where you create your loader, you'd still need it in a separate file, but you could pass it as context to your resolvers. So then you could access them in some way, like in the context here, or let's do this one. You could do like character loader if you had passed this in as the context for your GraphQL server, and then just access it the same way. I hope that answered your question. All right, any other questions, guys? Guys and gals? Again, thank you guys so much for attending. Hope you learned something cool. And yeah, you can find me on Twitter.
All right. Thank you so much, Star. We really appreciated you joining us today. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. We hope to see you back tomorrow with Xstate Fundamentals with creator David Khorshid. And after this week, we'll be taking a break for the new year, but we'll be back in March with another great lineup. Thanks again for joining, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.